This short video is on the Monty Hall problem. And if you don't understand everything that's going on in this video, that's all right. Go check out one of the hundreds of other videos on the Monty Hall problem on YouTube. First things first, who the heck is Monty Hall? Monty Hall was basically the host of a show back in the, I believe, 60s, maybe 70s, called Let's Make a Deal. And in the show, there was a very specific sort of setup for trying to win money or a car, and also a nice joke if you didn't. So to play the game in Let's Make a Deal, you basically have three doors. You're in this game show, you're given a choice of one of the three doors. You can pick one door, and there's prizes behind each of the doors. The thing is that behind two of the doors is a gag prize, and behind one of the doors is something great. In this context, we'll be thinking of the gag prize as a goat, right, behind two of the doors, and the good prize as a car. Now, basically what happens is, so you choose between one of the doors, right? You've got three choices. You say, okay, that one. I'm going to pick number one. So you pick door number one. Then the host will, of the remaining two doors, open one of those doors to show you the goat behind that door. Effectively, he's eliminating one of your further, one of the other two doors. But you've already chosen door number one, right? So what exactly does this matter? Well, it matters because the second thing that the host asks is then whether or not you wish to change your choice from your initial pick to the other door, that doesn't have the goat behind it. I mean, unless you really want a goat, hoping that the other door, in fact, has the car behind it. And so now the two options that you have are to stick with your initial choice of door number one, or to switch, to change your choice from door number one to door number two, assuming that you don't want the goat behind door number three. So you can stick with your initial choice, or you can change to door number two. So what do you think you should do? Now here's some initial thoughts and a seemingly plausible track of reasoning, right? You might think, look, I chose door number one, and then it was shown to me that behind another door, there was a goat. And that fact, what's behind door number three, is totally independent of what's behind door number one. And so what's behind door number three doesn't affect what's behind door number one. And so it just shouldn't matter what's behind door number three. And, now I just have, okay, so great. Now door number three has been eliminated, but now I just have a choice between door number one and door number two. And that's just a 50-50. So maybe I should just stick with my first choice and be confident that the car is behind my door. Sadly, if that's the way that you're reasoning, you would be dead wrong. And it's a very interesting reason for you being wrong, because that reasoning seems quite plausible. It seems very straightforward, and it seems like, well, yeah, you just have a 50-50 between door number one and door number two now. The actual answer here, though, is that you should always switch doors. That is at least the sort of best choice, or the best strategy for winning more often than not, is to always switch doors. In fact, you have a 2/3 chance of getting the car if you do switch doors, whereas only a 1/3 chance of getting the car if you don't switch doors. And you might be like, wait a minute, I thought it was a 50-50. How could it possibly be a 2/3 if I switch versus a 1/3 chance if I don't switch? Here is, the semblance of the beginning of an explanation. So when you go to pick initially, you choose door number 1. Well, you have a 1/3, a 1 in 3 chance of having picked the correct door, right? Between 1, 2, and 3, door number 1 has 1/3, chance of being right. So you pick door number 1. Well, then that means that there's a 2/3 chance that the car is behind doors number 2 and 3, right? There's a 2/3 chance, right? There's 1 in 3, he picked door number 1. Well, if there's 2 doors on the other side, there's a 2/3 chance that the car is behind door number 2 or 3. Now, what happens? The host opens one of those doors, effectively ruling out that the car is behind one of the doors between 2 or 3. So that doesn't make it the case that the car is behind door number 2, but it does eliminate the possibility among the 2 possibilities that that together make up a 2/3 possibility for where the car is behind. And so ultimately you get the lessening of one possibility, but you keep the fact that it's 2/3 likely that the car is behind one of those 2 doors. And so ultimately you shift the 2/3 likelihood from doors 2 and 3 simply to door number 2. Now, there's a sort of disconnect here, right, between the initial reasoning where you're thinking, oh, it's 50-50, and this sort of new way of thinking about it, where it's actually 1/3 to 2/3, and that switching gives you the 2/3 option. And the kind of issue here is that what's happened when the host opens up that extra door is that you've come to have new evidence, but you don't really realize or recognize this information as evidence, right? Probably because you thought something along the lines of that the evidence was, independent of what's behind your door. It turns out that it's not actually, because of the way that they gave you the choices. If they had shown you what was behind door number 3 and then let you choose between door number 1 and number 2, sure, in that case it would have been a 50-50 shot and it would have been independent. But not in this case. In this case, the fact that you've chosen a door and then that you're shown what's behind one of the doors that you didn't choose makes it the case that you have new evidence and you need to update what your beliefs are in order to actually maximize the chance of choosing the correct door. Here's hopefully another helpful way of seeing this or thinking about it, right? The host can be in one of 3 scenarios depending on what you choose, right? In the first scenario, the most unlucky scenario, you choose the door, but with the car behind it. And so there are 2 goats. The host can reveal either goat A or goat B in this situation. And in this case, if you switch, you will lose, right? You will lose in this case. But the issue is that's only one of the 3 situations that the host can end up being in, right? Because if you chose door number 2 or door number 3, then the host is going to be forced in either of those 2 cases to reveal the goat that's behind the particular door that is there, right? There are 2 situations in which the host is going to reveal a goat, but there's only one situation, or is going to be forced to reveal a goat. There's only one situation in which the host can sort of choose which goat to reveal. And that's ultimately why you should switch, because given your first choice, you are more likely to be in a situation like 2 or 3 where the host is going to be forced to reveal the particular door with the goat behind it. And so switching is ultimately more likely for you to get the car. So this problem, the Monty Hall show, Let's Make a Deal, went on for a long time before people really even caught on or figured this out at all. And interestingly, most people would stick with their original choice of door, sort of not recognizing that switching was actually the right thing to do. Um, Interestingly enough, right, that's a great sort of game show, because you've basically gamed the system in that case. If everyone sticks with their original guess, and that is like only a 1 in 3 winner, then your odds, like the house odds, right? The odds for the people making the show are better than 50-50, right? Because they're 2/3. The house doesn't have to give away the car and can save it for the next episode. So now the cool thing about this is basically by carefully reasoning here using some probability theory, it turns out that we're able to see that we should always change our choice of door if we want to win, and that this strategy is ultimately going to allow us to win 2/3 of the time, while not changing is only going to have us winning 1/3 of the time. And so what's cool about this is just that, sometimes logic, thinking very carefully about these things and actually like looking at the entire scenario, shows us the errors of our reasoning ways, shows us where we're actually going to be, tend to reason poorly. And so now you can kind of take away from this that when there's this type of scenario, you need to be extra careful in your reasoning, to make sure that you haven't been Monty Halled